want them to be able to pop out really easily in case of emergency. Before adding the hidden hinges he wanted to reinforce the side of the frame. I cut another piece of 1x and spread lots and lots of glue on it. Then I clamped it in place and let it dry overnight. For these particular hinges, you mark the center point and then you use the template and mark where the holes are going to be. These hidden hinges are really awesome. I'll have links to everything you need in the description. He marked off the necessary depth and the force drill bite and then drill the holes you want to make sure you don't go too deep here, because then the hinge will not sit flush with the face. Come back and clean up the hole with a knife and a chisel again. Only make the holes as deep as the instructions tell you. Pop the hinge in place to drill the hole and then screw it, and do the same for the other hinge to account for some variation in the pulley. Had to make some 8-inch plywood inserts so put underneath the wheels when I attached them to the bottom of the cabinet. You also noticed that the wheel is at an angle on purpose. Then it was just priming and painting the cabinet. I found a really cool Jules Verne novel to use as the secret latch. He measured the width and the height and then carefully cut out all the pages as one chunk. Hopefully I'll be able to reuse this book. It cut down some scrap pine that I had and glued it all together to make up the fake interior to the book. Before the glue dried I made sure to push the centerpiece out to force the spine into shape so that the spine wouldn't be squishy when the book was on the shelf. He clamped it all together and let it dry. After it dried I cut off the excess on the backside and then ran it over the joiner just to smooth out all the edges. Then I sprayed the top gold to kinda look like the original pages. Put some glue on, put the cover on, clamped it together to dry. Since I had thickened the wall where the hinges went, he had to cut out some of the original frame to make allowance for it. Multi-tools like this are really handy for notching out pieces. He set the bookcase in place and then marked where the center of the hinges fell against the wall and used that line to place the template directly on the door frame. Then I made holes for the hinges, just like before. Finally it was time to mount the bookcase. This is really just a matter of getting the hinges lined up and getting them put in place, and then adding sprays. He will tell you this is much easier when with someone helping you to hold the bookcase, so that you can focus on getting the screws and sprays. You don't want to take a chance of snapping one off and it doesn't fit. Here's the problem that I had a measurement of the cabinet was a bit smaller than the opening so that it can swing, and he had this figured out ahead of time when I was first doing the design. But later the design process, we decided to change the depth of the shelf. This threw the whole triangle off and I didn't make allowance for it at this point. The simplest thing to do without starting over was just to cut off the corner with the saw. My blade wasn't deep enough so I had to go back with the hand saw to chop off the excess. He knocked it out and it worked just fine. I cut some extra pieces of plywood to fill in the gaps from the inside. Since they're painted white and there's going to be books in front of them, you ended up not seeing them on the way. I hand nailed them into the MDF and it was all good to go. Since the cabinet is so much deeper than the door frame than it seemed, he had to build an offset to hold the latching mechanism. He used some 2x8 and some MDF to make a little shelf that it could screw in behind the door frame. Glue the pieces together and then countersunk some screws in from both sides. As he added some pocket holes from the back side to make the joint even stronger to the door frame. Then I screw it in with the 2x4 frame around the opening. He used the drill bit from the pocket hole jig to knock out the door jamb and then screw it in. Added a self-adjusting gate latch, but it turned out that the movement was a bad thing, so I pulled it out, knocked out the pin and then screw it right into my bracket. It needed to be sturdy so that the door could catch on it every single time. I added a 1x piece of pine to the cabinet so that I had something sturdy to attach the latch to. Re-drill some holes and then put the latch in place. Screw in a simple handle into the back of the MDF shelf so you can close it from the inside. It works. He made a mark for the wire to pass through by moving the latch up and down. Had to take the latch off and then drilled several holes and then cut it out with an dreams come true. Are you ready to be surprised? He says this man. He opens a small block in his fireplace, which started. I did not know I was there. Not already knowing you are probably not, because it looks the same as all the other squares. And set a map and start rubbing only on this square and this triggers the mechanism that opens its load. I do not know if he built it himself or he hired someone to do it. But this is something I do not think anyone will ever find out. If you want to hide it from it, valuable, nobody will ever rob you of that. In addition to all the people watching this video, because now we know where it is, but you should not do it. But I say, what's the point to have a secret room if you're the secret? So she looks like she's in a store and she presses the dryer and then just walks inside. When you're in a shop and you just want to try the dryer, you're the one I want to test. Press the button and suddenly this crazy room opens. Do you want to come in? You know what's going on. Hero, nice opening for a little extra storage, cause you know everyone needs some extra trouble in their lives. It's coolly like how it's like a remote controller. Well, there is more storage space. These people are set up. There is even more. There is storage space in the storage area. What? Okay. Now it's cool. It's cool. These are parents who just do not really want their I'll do something colder, and it's a hidden spice rack. My mum loves this boy who made them a hidden chair. This seems to be awkward. but I'm for it. What's happening here? It's a very big backyard. Wow, Mens has a lot of property and I just want to have cartwheels in the lawn. I feel if it's going to be TV, I still want to do cartwheels as I want to roll around in this grass. Will you let this eternal girl roll in your grass? Okay. It must be a TV. It's a TV. See, I know these things that I bet they watch when we land on the TV. What? There is a door in the bricks. It never loses is appeal as if I can watch these videos every day. Okay, so he gets something going on there. But it is the large-scale shelves. We must be suspicious of all the bookshelves. Who can never trust a bookshelf? A bookshelf may just be a door. Okay, what looks so smooth? I just wanted to slip like it, as you know. It's a Rubik's Cube. But if you try to solve it, you can only get a lot of doors. It's so cool. And there's even a seat inside. What can this room not be used to? Oh, I need it in my life. Serious, why can I order one? Well, she's angry now. I did not expect a second chair that just came from nowhere. Also, you know if they really want to impress me, I want to see 2 more chairs come out. Well, I did not get my 2 chairs. As it hung up what it was so seamlessly, I made a bookcase that's also a secret door to allow the cabinet to swing out. What you see from the outside has to be larger than what's on the inside, so I made a face frame out of 1 by pine. These pieces are a little bit thick for most built-in cabinets, but they actually match the thickness of some existing cabinets in the space. Each worked out pretty well in the way you use pocket holes to connect all these pieces. Pocket holes are great because they're hidden, and in this case it allows me to build the frame flat, without having to have the structure of the cabinet behind it. Yet I used a taller board on the bottom to match the base trim in the room. Then I cut some more pieces to use for the fronts of the shelves and attached them the exact same way. Next it was time to build the actual structure of the cabinet. That was gonna go behind the frame. I made this all out of wood. It's so easy to work with. It's really inexpensive. And it's going to be painted on. We used some glue and crab nails just to hold them in place, then came back and drilled holes with countersinks and screwed them all together so they'd be nice and strong. The size of this box is the same size as the interior dimensions of the frame. I added pocket holes all the way around the box as a nice clean hidden way to attach the frame. I laid down a bead of glue and then put the frame in place. I lined up the corners and then used the brad nails to hold the frame down before I put the pocket screws, and you save yourself a lot of sanding if you get the pine and the MDF lined up for you. Connect them with pockets. Braced shelves were cut out of MDF as well, and I used the square to draw my mesh so that I could line the shelves up when I put them in place with the pocket hole screws. Again, take your time to get the MDF and the pine lined up before you screw it all together and for good measure. I just shot some brads down through the front faces of the shelves, go back with the filler and then sand it all. While I was working on this project, I was listening to The Martian by Andy Weir on Audible. It's a science fiction book, but it's a little more like fictional science. It's very scientific and very precise. If you're into that kind of thing, I would definitely check it out, because I am enjoying it. But if you don't like that, there's 150,000 other titles on Audible that you can check out. Be sure to go to audible.com. Make us tough to get a free month of the service and a free book whether you keep the service or no. Town going there helps to support my videos for the backs of the cabinets. I cut down pieces of 8-inch plywood and just really lightly brad nail them on. I want them to be able to pop out really easily in case of emergency. Before adding the hidden hinge, yes, he wanted to reinforce the side of the frame. I cut another piece of 1 by and spread lots and lots of glue on it. Then I clamped it in place and let it dry overnight. For these particular hinges, you mark the center points and then you use the template and mark where the holes are going to be. These hidden hinges are really awesome. I'll have links to everything you need in the description. He marked off the necessary text from the force drill bite and then drilled the holes. You want to make sure you don't go too deep here, because then the hinge will not sit flush with the face. Come back and clean up the hole with a knife and a chisel again. Only make the holes as deep as the instructions tell you. Top put the hinge in place to drill the hole and then screw it in. Do the same for the other hinge to account for some variation in the flow. We had to make some 8-inch plywood inserts to put underneath the wheels when I attached them to the bottom of the cabinet. You'll also notice that the wheel is at an angle on purpose. Then it was just priming and painting the cabinet. I found a really cool Jules Verne novel to use as the secret latch. You measured the width and the height and then carefully cut out all the pages as one chunk. Hopefully I'll be able to reuse this book. It cut down some scrap pine that I had and glued it all together to make up the fake interior to the book. Before the glue dried, I made sure to push the centerpiece out to force the spine into shape so that the spine wouldn't be squishy when the book was on the shelf. We clamped it all together and let it dry. After it dried, I cut off the excess on the backside and then ran it over the joiner just to smooth out all the edges. Then I sprayed the top coat to kinda look like the original pages. Put some glue on, put the cover on, clamped it together to dry since I had thickened the wall when he had to cut out some of the original frame to make allowance for it. Multi-tools like this are really handy for notching out pieces. He set the bookcase in place and then marked where the center of the hinges fell against the wall and used that line to place the template directly on the door frame. Then I made holes for the hinges, just like before. Finally it was time to mount the bookcase. This is really just a matter of getting the hinges lined up and getting them pushed in place and then adding sprays. He will tell you this is much easier with someone helping you to hold the bookcase so that you can focus on getting the screws and sprays. You don't want to take a chance of snapping one off and it doesn't fit. Here's the problem: the diagonal measurement of the cabinet is too smaller than the opening so that it can swing, and he had this figured out ahead of time when I was first doing the design, but later the design process, we decided to change the depth of the shelf. This threw the whole triangle off and I didn't make allowance for it at this point. The simplest thing to do without starting over was just to cut off the corner with the saw. My blade wasn't deep enough so I had to go back with the handsaw to chop off the excess. He knocked it out and it worked just fine. I cut some extra pieces of plywood to fill in the gaps from the inside. Since they're painted white and there's going to be books in front of them, you ended up not seeing them on the way. I nailed them into the MDF and it was all good to go. Since the cabinet is so much made a bookcase, that's also a secret door to allow the cabinet to swing out. What you see from the outside has to be larger than what's on the inside, so I made a face frame out of 1x5. These pieces are a little bit thick for most built-in cabinets, but they actually match the thickness of some existing cabinets, and the spacing worked out pretty well in that way. You use pocket holes to connect all these pieces. Pocket holes are great because they're hidden, and in this case it allows me to build the frame flat without having to have the structure of the cabinet behind it. Yet he used a taller board on the bottom to match the base trim in the room. Then I cut some more pieces to use for the fronts of the shelves and attached them the exact same way. Next it was time to build the actual structure of the cabinet that was gonna go behind the frame. I made this all out of wood. It's so easy to work with, it's really inexpensive, and it's going to be painted on. We used some glue and brad nails just to hold them in place, then came back and drilled holes with countersinks and screwed them all together so they'd be nice and strong. The size of this box is the same size as the interior dimensions of the frame. I added pocket holes all the way around the box as a nice clean hidden way to attach the frame. I laid down a bead of glue and then put the frame in place. I lined up the corners and then used the brad nails to hold the frame down before I put the pocket screws, and you'll save yourself a lot of sanding if you get the pine and the MDF lined up, or you connect them with pocket straight. Shelves were cut out of MDF as well, and I used the square to draw my net so that I could line the shelves up when I put them in place with the pocket holes. Exactly, take your time to get the MDF and the pine lined up before you screw them all together and put them in. I just shot some brad down through the front faces of the shelves, go back with wood filler and then sand it all. While I was working on this project I was listening to The Martian by Andy Weir on Audible. It's a science fiction book, but it's a little more like fictional science. It's very scientific and very precise. If you're into that kind of thing I would definitely check it out because I am enjoying it. But if you don't like that, there's 150,000 other titles on Audible that you can check out. Be sure to go to audible.com. Make us tough to get a free month of the service and a free book whether you keep the service or not, and going there helps to support my videos for the backs of the cabinets. I cut down pieces of 8-inch plywood and just really lightly brad nail them on. I want them to be able to pop out really easily in case of emergency. Before adding the hidden hinges he wanted to reinforce the side of the frame. I cut another piece of 1x and spread lots and lots of glue on it. Then I clamped it in place and let it dry overnight. For these particular hinges, you mark the center point and then you use the template and mark where the holes are gonna be. These hidden hinges are really awesome. I'll have links to everything you need in the description. He marked off the necessary depth from the force drill bite and then drilled the holes you want. To make sure you don't go too deep here because then the hinge will not sit flush with the face. Come back and clean up the hole with a knife and a chisel again. Only make the holes as deep as the instructions tell you to. Put the hinge in place, drill the holes and then screw it in. Go the same for the other hinge. To account for some variation in the flurry had to make some 8-inch plywood inserts to put underneath the wheels when I attached them to the bottom of the cabinet. You'll also notice that the wheel is at an angle on purpose. Then it was just priming and painting the cabinet. I found a really cool Jules Verne novel to use as the secret latch. He measured the width and the height and then carefully cut out all the pages as one chunk. Hopefully I'll be able to reuse this book. It cut down some scrap pine that I had and glued it all together to make up the fake interior to the book. Before the glue dried I made sure to push the centerpiece out to force the spine into shape so that the spine wouldn't be squishy when the book was on the shelf. He clamped it all together and let it dry. After it dried I cut off the excess on the backside and then ran it over the joiner just to smooth out all the edges. Then I sprayed the top gold to kinda look like the original pages. Put some glue on, put the cover on, clamped it together to dry since I had thickened the wall when the hinges when he had to cut out some of the original frame. To make allowance for it, multi-tools like this are really handy for notching out pieces. He set the bookcase in place and then marked where the center of the hinges fell against the wall and used that line to place the template directly on the door frame. Then I made holes for the hinges, just like before. Finally it was time to mount the bookcase. This is really just a matter of getting the hinges lined up and getting them pushed in place and then adding screws. He will tell you this is much easier with someone helping you to hold the bookcase so that you can focus on getting the screws in straight. You don't want to take a chance of snapping one off and it doesn't fit. Here's the problem: the diagonal measurement of the cabinet has to be smaller than the opening so that it can swing, and he had this figured out ahead of time when I was first doing the design. But later the design process, we decided to change the depth of the shelf. This threw the whole triangle off and I didn't make allowance for it at this point. The simplest thing to do without starting over was just to cut off the corner with the saw. My blade wasn't deep enough so I had to go back with the handsaw to chop off the excess. He knocked it out and it worked just fine. I cut some extra pieces of plywood to fill in the gaps from the inside since they're painted white and there's going to be books in front of them. You ended up not seeing them on the way. I nailed them into the MDF and it was all good to go. Since the cabinet is so much to make a bookcase, that's also a secret door to allow the cabinet to swing out. What you see from the outside has to be larger than what's on the inside, so I made a face frame out of 1x pine. These pieces are a little bit thick for most built-in cabinets, but they actually match the thickness of some existing cabinets in the space. It worked out pretty well in that way. He used pocket holes to connect all these pieces. Pocket holes are great because they're hidden, and in this case it allows me to build the frame flat, without having to have the structure of the cabinet behind it. Yet he used a taller board on the bottom to match the base trim in the room. Then I cut some more pieces to use for the fronts of the shelves and attached them the exact same way. Next it was time to build the actual structure of the cabinet that was gonna go behind the frame. I made this all out of wood. Fits so easy to work with, it's really inexpensive, and it's going to be painted on. We used some glue and brad nails just to hold them in place, then came back and drilled holes with countersinks and screwed them all together so they'd be nice and strong. The size of this box is the same size as the interior dimensions of the frame. I added pocket holes all the way around the book with a nice clean hidden way to attach the frame. I laid down the bead of glue and then put the frame in place. I lined up the corners and then used the brad nails to hold the frame down before I put the pocket screws in. You save yourself a lot of sanding if you get the pine and the MDF lined up, or you connect them with pocket scrapes. Shelves were cut out of MDF as well, and I used a square to draw liners so that I could line the shelves up when I put them in place with the pocket fill screws. Again, take your time to get the MDF and the pine lined up before you screw it all together and for good measure. I just shot some brads down through the front faces of the shelves, go back with wood filler and then sand it all. While I was working on this project I was listening to The Martian by Andy Weir on Audible. It's a science fiction book, but it's a little more like fictional science. It's very scientific and very precise.
Thank you for watching. Now it's time to discover more. Simply click on the screen to subscribe to our channel, watch another video, and visit our webpage.